What's interesting is that everything Boston did well through the first three quarters or whatever it was completely just flipped in the fourth quarter. Milwaukee beat them in transition. They scored most of their points off turnovers in the fourth quarters. They got seven of their 17 offensive rebounds in that fourth quarter. It was just like it was an epic collapse because like seldom do you see like such a comprehensive implosion. It was just at every single level of the game. And I do think you need to credit Milwaukee, who played fantastic defense. I think Wes Matthews and Pat Connaughton have been like two of just the undersung heroes in this series. I mean, and Wes Matthews too, just like playing all these minutes at the age of 80 or whatever he is at this point. So that's just been interesting to watch. I wonder if, you mentioned Giannis sort of figuring out Al Horford, and I'm kind of with you. The Bucks offense can still be frustrating at points where they set a ball screen for Giannis, but then there's not really anything going on after the ball screen. He's just at the top of the key and he's going after who's ever in front of him. He's been able to get by Al Horford. And then, your co-host, I think it was Rowan, mentioned like he's been using his angles a lot better. And I totally agree. I'm wondering how much it has to do with Robert Williams, the third, not being in the series anymore to be behind those plays. Giannis, through the first two games, only took 10 shots when Al Horford was on the court. And he was 5 of 10, but only 10 shots. And a lot of those minutes are coming with Time Lord. He has taken many more shots since Time Lord went down, and he's shooting like 60% from two in those things. And so do you think that I'm with you in the sense that Milwaukee and Boston face some of the same offensive struggles. And I don't think we can say, oh, the Bucks offense has figured it out, but it feels like Giannis might've figured out how to attack the Celtics, at least as they're currently constituted without Robert Williams III there.
Yeah, I think he kind of does this to everyone. I think that was what changed last postseason is he figured out something. He figured out more counters, and his will has always been unrelenting. But I think he's figured out added a couple tricks to the apparently small bag to get by these defenses. But I do think Robert Williams would change things. I don't know if Boston would close with him because I think the issue there for the Celtics, while I do agree, I think, I've seen this narrative that it's good for Boston and he's not playing. That's stupid. He's a good player. They don't have a ton of good players, although their bench was excellent. They somehow won Daniel Theis minutes convincingly, which drove us crazy watching the game. But Robert Williams would certainly help Boston. But I do think what is good for the Bucks about his minutes is those are very comfortable Brook Lopez minutes. Since he's gone out, Lopez has not had as much of an impact on either direction because essentially Boston is always 5 out. I mean, even Theis is what made a three and can shoot threes to an extent. Whereas Robert Williams, that jumper, the mid-range jumper for him has looked quite good this series. And it's probably like 3 attempts. I'm a sicko because I buy into stuff like that. But he's made a couple that I was like, oh, I didn't know he could do that. But Lopez is a lot more comfortable hanging with him. So I think if he does go game 6 and plays a significant amount, I would expect it to be another lower scoring game. I think that's some of the reason the scoring has upticked over these last two, in addition to defenders just getting tired, is, less Brook Lopez. He played 20 minutes last night. They lost his minutes by a couple points. He hasn't been as effective on either end. I think if Time Lord is out there for 25 minutes, you can probably pencil in Brook Lopez for those 25 minutes, and then both teams' paint becomes a nightmare again. Like there's some similarities with how these two teams can function defensively, I think. And it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think it'll be harder for Giannis, and then maybe even more importance on role players hitting threes. Thankfully, Pat Connaughton has stepped up in a big way when guys like Grayson Allen really have not. And just, again, it'll become like who can force more turnovers, who can get going in transition to beat these half-court defenses because they're both very thorny with those two centers down low.
What do you make of, there was the report, and you guys talked about this on the Eurostep, that Khris Middleton could return for a game 6 or a game 7. Do you buy into that? And 2, would you even be in favor of it? And I think it's easy to be in favor of it because I guess this is me underestimating the Bucks, or maybe it's me overestimating how important Khris Middleton is to them. I thought the Celtics were going to win this series. I believe that Khris Middleton was that important to the Bucks' half-court offense. And I still think he is. I just underestimated, well, shit, Giannis exists and like his will be done sometimes. Like that's just what it feels like with him. But what do you make of that whole situation? Would you expect him to play in one of these two closeout games if there's even 2 of them? And would you even be in favor of that given the injury that he's coming back from?
Let me clarify. I think everyone probably knows, but I have no inside information. This is not reporting.
Aggregators.
Speculation. Aggregators, call them off. This is a useless take for you. I would expect him to play before the series ends, which is Rohan's take. I would love to see him play in game 6 with the obvious caveat if he's truly ready to play, if it's safe for him to play. Even if it's safe for him to play, but he's going to be a little limited at first, I'd even like to see him then. I think a couple, like 15, 20 minutes. Again, player safety is the most important thing. They're up 3-2 without him. You obviously want him back. You don't want to take any game lightly in this series with how close it's been, but he would provide such a jolt. I mean, there's so many times. The funny thing about game 5 is it was kind of the just like carbon copy, but the opposite of game 4, where the Bucks held a lead at halftime, built a lead up in the third quarter, and then ended up just blowing it in the second half. The Celtics built their lead more in the fourth quarter, but still that reversal late. It's the same thing kind of happened to the Bucks in the Al Horford and Tatum explosion. And Marcus Smart had some big plays in there too. But I was thinking, and we talked about after that game, man, some of those runs when like the Bucks could not score, that's when you need Khris Middleton to just say, F it, I'm just gonna shoot over a guy and drain 3 possessions or 3 jumpers in 4 possessions, which is what he's done so many times in that championship run to just calm everybody down, kill the opposing momentum, all that stuff. They really do miss him a ton. I think he is very important. They're just like grinding out every other advantage they can find. I mean, you mentioned the offensive rebounds. That's a very Bucks thing. It's new for them to do so well without Brook Lopez on the court in that arena. And I think a lot of credit to Bobby Portis, who did not have a good shooting game, but really hustled on the boards, which has been big for him this season. But yeah, I would love to see him back for game 6. Again, you just don't want to do an unsafe thing. But I do think the way Bud talked about his status a couple games ago, I think it's certainly possible we see him at least before the end of the series, if not tomorrow or today, whenever people are listening.
I like that Bud said he's going to keep the starting 5 a state secret from now on or whatever.
They keep everything a state secret. It's funny the way he did it, but it's so everything has been so Bucks. The Khris Middleton injury update, yeah, he's doing all right. We'll let you know. That was it. That's great. Thanks for the update. Really appreciate it.
Their sports books are thrilled.
Oh yeah, they always are.
I'm with you. Presuming he can't do any further damage or he's fine and can play him. I don't know that I would want to see him in game 6. If he doesn't play game 6 and there's a game 7, I don't want to see him in that. Just because he hasn't played in so long, I do wonder if there would be something to the effect of, if he doesn't hurt you, does he even really help you? Is he someone the Boston could then target on defense, depending on how he's moving, what his stamina is like? And you have a little bit of a margin for error now because you have the 1 game cushion. So if you bring him back in game 6, if there is a game 7, or maybe he's just fresher for the second round, should you win. To your point though, like even after game 5, the Jrue Holiday minutes without Giannis, the Bucks have been slaughtered. They've been outscored by 31 points in 40 minutes, and their approach probably needs to be, we're throwing the kitchen sink at you when Giannis isn't on the court, and that would be Khris Middleton and Jrue Holiday, and you could probably just, given who else is on their team, flesh out their roster from there.